Now, have you ever imagined Albert Einstein playing violin, for God's sake? The only images that might conjure up in your mind about this man is either his tongue stretching out or some very unimaginable, unconceivable mathematical equation on the blackboard behind him. Playing a violin doesn't occur to us, isn't it? But less known phenomena is that he was an extremely good violin player. So much so that the recent studies of Albert Einstein's brain, and I'm sure you must be knowing that Albert Einstein's brain was smuggled when his autopsy was done. So the guy who was doing his autopsy smuggled his brain without any permission of the family. And when the family did the rituals, they realized that the most important organ is missing. So he dissected the brain into small pieces, shipped it to various people across US and Canada. With the advancement in the CT scans, they rebuilt his entire brain. And they realized something very interesting with Albert Einstein's brain. What they realized is that one of the sections of the brain of Albert Einstein was quite similar in its structure to the section of extremely good musicians. And then they started talking to musicians, extremely good musicians like Hans Zimmer, of the fame of Dark Knight. And when they realize that how musicians become great, they don't start reading the notes. They just don't refer to the notes at all beyond a point. So when musicians become great, they develop what we call as spatial thinking. Spatial thinking means thinking in the space. And the less known fact then remains that his ability to think in space, which came out of his ability to play violin, is exactly what helped him conjure up the theory of relativity. So if I were to propose to all of you that E is equal to mc square came out of violin, you wouldn't believe me. But that's not too far-fetched an imagination either, which means that we all need to take our hobbies seriously. Let's go back to our childhood days. When did we develop hobbies as a child? Hobbies were developed by all of us to pretty much occupy the time. We had a good 8 hours, 10 hours between sleeping and perhaps going to that kindergarten. And between that time, we had to fill that time somehow. Those were the days when we didn't have these electronic gadgets. So we picked up hobbies. Then we had schools, and more recently we have jobs. What a job does is a job eats away into our hobbies. The fundamental difference here between a job and a hobby is this. A job is something that you do and you continue to do with a very clear external motivation, such as a salary, a promotion, incentives, or whatever else you have. Whereas a hobby is something that you do and you continue to do with a very intrinsic motivation. What I'm proposing to all of you is that creative people protect their hobbies very ferociously. They protect their hobbies from their jobs. They protect their hobbies from the people who evaluate their hobbies. And these hobbies will be very useful when all of us will be retiring. By the time most of the students sitting before me will retire, the life expectancy in this country would be about 85 years. So you have actually 25 boring years in your life, between 60 and 85. Boring years when you would not have huge physical strength, when you can't go out, and that's where the hobbies will be very crucial to you. Hobbies do 3 things to you. First thing is that hobby gives you self-confidence. Because here is a point in time when you're not getting judged in comparison with somebody else. The second thing that hobby gives you is a new perspective. When you're gardening, when you're cooking, when you're painting, singing, dancing, for your own benefit, by the way, you shift your mindset. You shift your mindset from the problem zone to the solution zone, and still keeping in your mind the problem which you wanted to solve. And the third thing is that it allows you to have new connections. When you're part of a bike club, blood donation camp, gardening camp, Bharatnatyam club, etc., you end up engaging with people who are outside your work domain. And that is why you realize that maybe the problems that you are so grappling with have been solved already by somebody else in some other domain. So why not just learn from them? And that's why some of the most creative people are absolutely polymaths. They don't define their life by their titles or by their roles. They define their lives quite broadly. The canvases are drawn quite neat and quite broad. So have a hobby, and more importantly, protect your hobbies. Hobbies are very important in life. Go back to your childhood and you realize why.